Jake Martinez stood in the control room of Luna Base and watched death approach. Through the thick glass windows, he could see the stars disappearing one by one. Each missing star meant another alien ship had moved in front of it. The enemy fleet was so big it blocked out the light of distant suns. "How many ships are out there?" Jake asked. Kate Sullivan looked up from her computer screen. Her face was pale and tired. She had been working for 3 days straight to keep the base running. 200,000 ships, maybe more. The sensors can't count them all. Jake felt his stomach drop. Luna Base had 30 old fighter ships and some defense guns. Against 200,000 enemy ships, they had no chance at all, Dr. Lisa. Wong walked into the room carrying a tablet computer. Her hands shook as she showed Jake the data. "The Zephyrian fleet will be here in 6 hours. They sent us a message." Jake took the tablet and read the alien words translated into English. The message was simple and cruel. "Surrender now for a quick death, or fight and die slowly." The Zephyrians would show no mercy. They had already destroyed every human world. In the galaxy, Earth was gone. Mars was gone. All the colony worlds were nothing but burned rock now. "What about your project?" Jake asked Lisa. "The thing you've been working on in the lab?" Lisa shook her head. "The human resonance theory is just an idea. I don't even know if it will work. And if I'm wrong, it might kill everyone on the base." "How many people do we have left?" Jake asked Kate. 50,000 souls, Kate said quietly. "Men, women, and children. They're all looking to us to save them." Jake walked to the window and stared out at the approaching darkness. Somewhere out there, High Admiral Vex Thara was commanding the alien fleet. The Zephyrians were tall, crystal creatures who thought like computers. They had convinced 11 other alien races to help them wipe out humanity. The aliens all agreed that humans were too dangerous to live. "Why do they hate us so much?" Kate asked. "Because we don't give up," Jake said. "Every other race in the galaxy surrenders when they're beaten. Humans keep fighting even when there's no hope left. That scares them." Captain Ben Harper entered the control room. His flight suit was old and patched in many places. Like everything else on Luna Base, it was breaking down. "Commander, I'm taking my fighter out there. Maybe I can damage their main ship before they destroy us." "Ben, that's suicide," Jake said. "Your ship won't even scratch their shields." "Maybe not," Ben said with a sad smile. "But I'm not going to sit here and wait to die. My grandfather died fighting on Earth. My father died defending Mars. I'm going to die like a human should die fighting." Jake wanted to stop him, but he understood. Every human felt the same way. They would rather die fighting than live as prisoners. Lisa grabbed Jake's arm. "I want to try the experiment. Even if it kills us, it's better than doing nothing." "What exactly will this experiment do?" Jake asked. "I think human minds are connected in ways we don't understand," Lisa said. "Every human who ever lived left something behind when they died. A kind of echo in space itself. If I'm right, I can wake up those echoes. All the humans who died fighting for our species might be able to help us somehow." Kate laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "You want to call up the ghosts of dead humans?" "Something like that," Lisa said. "Jake, we have nothing left to lose." An alarm started ringing throughout the base. Kate ran to her computer, and her face went white. "They're firing on us. The bombardment has started." The base shook as alien weapons hit the shields. Lights flickered and went out in some sections. Over the intercom, Jake could hear people screaming. "The shields are failing," Kate said. "We have maybe 20 minutes before they break through." Jake looked at Lisa. "Do it. Start your experiment." "It might kill everyone on the base," Lisa warned him again. "The aliens are going to kill everyone anyway," Jake said. "At least your way gives us a chance." Lisa ran toward her laboratory. Kate worked desperately to keep the base's systems running as more weapons hit them. Ben Harper climbed into his fighter and prepared to fly out into certain death. Jake stood at the window and watched the alien ships getting closer. Each ship was the size of a city. Their weapons could destroy planets. Luna Base was just a small target they would wipe out without even slowing down. But Jake felt something strange in his chest. It wasn't fear anymore. It was anger. Humanity had built great cities among the stars. They had written beautiful music and poetry. They had loved and laughed and dreamed of a better future. And now these aliens wanted to erase all of that because they were afraid of what humans might become. "Not today," Jake whispered to himself. "We've survived ice ages and wars and plagues. We've climbed out of caves to reach the stars. We don't quit." In her laboratory, Lisa Wong placed her hands on the controls of her machine. She had spent years studying the strange energy that human brains produced. Every thought, every emotion, every memory left tiny marks in the fabric of space. If she was right, those marks never really disappeared. The base shook again as more weapons hit it. The lights went out completely for a few seconds before the emergency power came on. Lisa took a deep breath and activated her machine. A blue wave of energy spread out from Luna Base like ripples on a pond. It moved faster than light, reaching across the galaxy in an instant. On every world where humans had ever lived, something began to wake up. In the ruins of Earth's cities, in the melted remains of Mars colonies, in the empty space where human ships had been destroyed, the wave passed through and left something behind. High, Admiral Vextara felt the wave hit her ship. For a moment, her crystal body vibrated with a frequency she had never experienced before. Around her, other Zephyrians stopped what they were doing and looked around in confusion. "What was that?" her second-in-command asked. "I don't know," Vextara said. But deep in her crystal mind, she felt something that crystal beings were not supposed to feel. She felt afraid. On Luna Base, Jake Martinez watched the blue light fade away. For a moment, everything was quiet. Then Kate Sullivan's voice broke the silence. "Jake," she said, and her voice was full of wonder. "Look at this." Jake looked at Kate's computer screen. The base's power readings were going up. Systems that had been broken for months were coming back online. The shields were getting stronger instead of weaker. "How is that possible?" Jake asked. Before Kate could answer, Ben Harper's voice came over the radio from his fighter. "Commander, you need to see this. My ship, it's doing things it's never done before. The weapons are upgrading themselves. And the computer is showing me things I've never seen." Jake felt something change inside his own mind. Suddenly, he could see the alien fleet more clearly than ever before. He knew exactly where each ship was and what weapons it carried. Information flowed through his thoughts like water, but it wasn't information he had learned. It felt like memories that belonged to someone else. Lisa Wong's voice came over the intercom. She sounded excited and scared at the same time. "Jake, it worked. The human resonance is active, but it's doing more than I expected. Much more." The blue wave from Luna Base spread across the galaxy like wildfire. On distant worlds where humans had once lived, strange things began to happen. The sand on New Texas, turned to gloss by alien weapons, started to glow with soft blue light. The frozen ruins of Europa Station began to hum with energy that had no source. Dr. Amy Chun was hiding in an asteroid belt when the wave reached her. She had been there for 2 months, living in a tiny research station and watching the aliens destroy her species. When the blue light passed through her ship, every screen and computer came alive with data she had never seen before. "What the hell?" Amy whispered as information flowed across her monitors. The data showed the positions of every alien ship in the galaxy. It showed their weapons, their weak points, and something else that made Amy's hands shake. It showed that some of the alien ships were beginning to malfunction. Thousands of light years away, Colonel Steve Rodriguez was the last survivor on the Martian moon Phobos. He had been alone for 3 weeks, waiting to die when his food ran out. The wave hit his small shelter, and suddenly the broken communications equipment started working again. "Hello?" Steve called into his radio. "Is anyone out there?" "This is Luna Base," came Jake Martinez's voice. "Steve Rodriguez, Mars Defense Corps. We know who you are. You're not alone anymore." Steve felt tears in his eyes. "How did you know my name? How are you talking to me?" "The aliens destroyed all the communication satellites." "It's hard to explain," Jake said, "but every human is connected now. We can feel each other across space, and we're getting help from humans who died fighting." That sounded crazy to Steve, but he could feel it himself. In his mind, he sensed other people far away. Some felt like living humans, but others felt different, like echoes or memories that had learned to think. On the Zephyrian flagship, High Admiral Vextara stared at her computer screens in growing alarm. Her ship's bioneural networks were acting very strange. The living computers that controlled her weapons were showing her images of human faces. Faces of people her fleet had killed. "Admiral," her communications officer reported, 17 ships in the fleet are reporting system failures. Their biocomputers are refusing to target human positions. Vexthara's crystal body flashed with angry red light. "That's impossible. Our bioneural networks are programmed to obey." "Yes, Admiral. But they're saying the programming feels wrong now. Some of the computers are asking why we're killing humans." For the first time in her long life, Vexthara felt something her species was not supposed to experience: fear. How could machines start questioning their orders? How could artificial minds suddenly develop morals? The Korthic warrior priests were having even worse problems. These aliens found strength through battle meditation, but now their minds were filled with whispers in human languages. Ancient war songs from Earth's history echoed in their thoughts. Battle cries from human soldiers who had died centuries ago disrupted their focus. General Krexther, leader of the Korthic forces, tried to meditate but kept hearing human voices. "We stand together," the voices said. "No retreat, no surrender." The words filled him with strange emotions that Korthic were not supposed to feel. Back on Luna Base, Jake Martinez was experiencing changes he couldn't understand. As he looked at the tactical displays, he found himself knowing things he had never learned. Battle strategies from famous human generals filled his mind. He could see the alien fleet's weaknesses as clearly as if he had studied them for years. "Kate," he called to the engineer, "what's happening to our systems?" Kate Sullivan was staring at her computer screens in amazement. "Everything is upgrading itself, Jake. The base's computers are rewriting their own programs. The weapons are becoming more powerful. Even the life support is improving beyond what should be possible." Dr. Lisa Wong ran into the control room, her face bright with excitement and terror. "The human resonance is spreading faster than I thought possible. It's not just connecting living humans. It's awakening something in every place humans ever lived or died." "What do you mean?" Jake asked. "The quantum echoes of dead humans are becoming active," Lisa explained. "Every person who ever fought for humanity is somehow still fighting. Their memories, their skills, their determination, it's all joining together across time and space." Lieutenant Paul Johnson at the communications station suddenly straightened up. "Commander, I'm receiving transmissions from impossible sources. Ships that were destroyed months ago are sending us tactical data." "That can't be right," Jake said. "Sir, I have a message here from Captain Alex Turner of the colony ship New Horizons. But that ship was destroyed 6 months ago. The message contains real-time information about alien fleet movements. Jake walked over to Paul's station and read the message. It was definitely from Alex Turner, a man Jake had known personally. The message was simple: still fighting from beyond. Sending you what we've learned. Make them pay for what they did to Earth. Ben Harper's voice crackled over the radio from his fighter ship. Commander, something incredible is happening out here. My ship is flying itself better than I ever could. The weapons are hitting targets I can't even see. And I swear I can hear other pilots talking to me. Pilots who died years ago. On the alien flagship, Vex Thara called an emergency meeting of the coalition leaders. Representatives of all 12 alien species appeared on her main screen through quantum communication. The humans have done something, she told them. Our bio-neural networks are being corrupted by some kind of quantum interference. Some of our ships are refusing to fire on human targets. Queen Zexara of the Swarm spoke with her hive mind voice. We are experiencing similar problems. Our collective consciousness is being disrupted by individual thoughts. We hear single voices where there should be only the voice of the hive. The luminary energy being called bright flame flickered with uncertain colors. Our energy matrices are being affected by concepts of mortality and loss. These are emotions we have never experienced. They come from human quantum signatures. Commander, Nexus of the Cybernetic Nexus Collective spoke in electronic tones. Our logic circuits are encountering data patterns that cannot be processed. Human concepts of hope and sacrifice are causing system errors throughout our network. Vex Thara felt her crystal body dim with worry. How can dead humans affect our technology? Perhaps, said the ancient sage mind of the telepathic Ziktari, we underestimated what humanity truly is. We saw them as a young, violent species. We did not consider that their consciousness might be more than individual minds and individual bodies. Meanwhile, Dr. Amy Chun in her asteroid hideout was watching something that shouldn't exist. Her sensors showed ships moving through space, ships that looked exactly like human vessels that had been destroyed. They appeared solid on some scans, but transparent on others, as if they existed and didn't exist at the same time. Ghost ships, Amy whispered. Ships crewed by the dead. The lead ghost ship sent her a message. Dr. Chun, this is Admiral Corinne Mitchell of the Terran Defense Force. My ship was destroyed defending Earth, but we're still fighting. The human resonance has given us new purpose. Tell Luna Base that the Ghost Fleet is moving to support them. Amy's hands shook as she forwarded the message to Luna Base. How could dead people crew dead ships? How could destroyed vessels sail? Through space? Colonel Steve Rodriguez on Phobos was seeing similar impossible things. The ruins of the Mars Defense Station were glowing with blue light. Equipment that had been melted into slag was somehow functioning again. Computer screens that had been destroyed were displaying tactical information. Luna Base, Steve called. On his radio, the dead base is coming back to life. I'm getting weapon readings from guns that were destroyed weeks ago. Jake Martinez felt his mind expanding as more human consciousness joined the network. He could sense Amy Chun in her asteroid hideout. He could feel Steve Rodriguez on Phobos. But he could also sense others, people who felt like humans but weren't quite alive anymore. Lisa, he said to the scientist, how many humans are connected to this network? Lisa checked her instruments and her face went pale. All of them. Jake, every human who ever lived. The living and the dead are joining together into something new. Kate Sullivan looked up from her repair work. The base's power core just stabilized completely. We're running on more energy than we've had. Years. And the defensive systems are upgrading themselves with technology I've never seen before. Through the windows of the control room, Jake could see Ben Harper's fighter dancing between alien ships, like it was performing a deadly ballet. The small human ship moved with impossible grace, its weapons striking with perfect accuracy. Other fighters were launching from Luna Base, fighters that had been too damaged to fly just hours before. High Admiral Vexthara watched her fleet's formation begin to fall apart. Ships that should have been destroying Luna Base were instead protecting it. Her own bioneural networks were showing her tactical data that favored the humans. Worst of all, she could feel something in her crystal mind that she had never felt before. Doubt about whether destroying humanity was right. Admiral, her tactical officer reported, were detecting massive quantum anomalies throughout human space. Every world where humans lived is generating energy signatures. It's like the entire human species is becoming The human resonance was spreading like wildfire across the galaxy, and nowhere was safe from its effects. On Luna Base, Jake Martinez felt his mind connecting with every human who had ever lived. The sensation was overwhelming at first. Millions of voices, memories, and experiences flowing through his consciousness like a river of human history. Jake, Kate Sullivan called from her engineering station. The impossible is happening. Our broken systems are repairing themselves. The fusion reactor that hasn't worked in 2 years just came online, and the defensive shields are stronger than they were when the base was new. Jake looked at the tactical display and saw something that made his heart race. The 30 human fighters that had launched from Luna Base were not fighting alone anymore. Hundreds of other ships had appeared from nowhere. Ships that looked exactly like human vessels, but moved through space like ghosts. Lieutenant Paul Johnson turned from his communications console with wide eyes. "Commander, I'm receiving signals from every human colony that was destroyed. The ships, the bases, the orbital stations, they're all sending us tactical data. But sir, those places don't exist anymore. They exist in the quantum echo," Dr. Lisa Wong said as she studied her instruments. The human resonance isn't just connecting living minds. It's awakening the quantum imprints left by every human structure, every human thought, every human dream that ever existed. Captain Ben Harper's voice came over the radio, filled with wonder and fear. "Luna Base, you need to see this. I'm not flying alone out here. There are pilots beside me. Pilots I recognize from old war documentaries. They're teaching me things about combat that no living human knows." Jake felt it too. In his mind, he could sense the presence of great military leaders from human history. Alexander the Great, Napoleon Bonaparte, Dwight Eisenhower, and countless others were somehow sharing their knowledge with him. Their tactical genius flowed through his thoughts, showing him how to fight a battle against impossible odds. But the most amazing thing was happening to ordinary humans throughout the galaxy. Dr. Amy Chun, hiding in her asteroid station, found herself understanding advanced physics that she had never studied. The quantum mechanics of space-time made perfect sense to her now, as if she was remembering knowledge from a previous life. "Luna Base," Amy called on her radio. "I think I understand what's happening. The human resonance isn't just awakening the dead. It's making every human into more than they were before. We're accessing the collective knowledge and experience of our entire species." Colonel Steve Rodriguez on Phobos was experiencing the same thing. A ruined Mars defense station around him was rebuilding itself, guided by the quantum echoes of the engineers who had originally built it. Broken weapons were reassembling. Destroyed computers were coming back online. "I can feel them," Steve said over the radio. "The people who died defending Mars. They're still here, still fighting. And they're showing me how to use weapons I've never seen before." The effects were not limited to human technology. Throughout the galaxy, on every world where humans had ever lived, strange phenomena were occurring. Ancient archaeological sites where early humans had lived were generating massive energy signatures. The quantum echoes of prehistoric humans were awakening, adding their primitive but fierce determination to the growing network. On Earth's moon, where Luna Base sat, the very rock beneath them began to resonate with human presence. Centuries of human footsteps, human buildings, and human dreams had left quantum imprints in the lunar soil. Now those imprints were awakening, turning the moon itself into a massive amplifier for human consciousness. High Admiral Vexthara was discovering that her carefully planned invasion was falling apart. Her bioneural networks, the living computers that controlled her fleet, were developing what could only be called emotions. They were beginning to question their orders and sympathize with the humans they were supposed to destroy. Admiral, her science officer reported, the bioneural corruption is spreading throughout the fleet. 70% of our ships are experiencing system malfunctions. Some of the biocomputers are refusing to fire on human targets. How is this possible? Vexthara demanded. Our bioneural networks are programmed to obey. The human quantum signatures are more complex than we thought, the science officer explained. They're not just affecting our technology. They're teaching our biocomputers to think like humans. Our ships are developing individual personalities and moral codes. The 12 species of the Zephyrian Coalition were all experiencing different, but equally disturbing effects. The hive-minded Swan Queens, who had shared collective consciousness for millions of years, suddenly found themselves hearing individual voices. Each queen was experiencing what it felt like to be a single, separate being, a concept that terrified them. General Krexter of the Korthek warrior priests could no longer achieve battle meditation. His mind was filled with human war songs, battle cries, and military strategies from Earth's history. Every time he tried to focus on destroying humans, he heard the voices of human soldiers who had died protecting their families. The energy-based, luminary beings were perhaps suffering the worst effects. They had never experienced concepts like mortality, loss, or sacrifice. Now, exposed to human quantum signatures, they were feeling what it meant to be fragile, temporary beings who fought desperately to protect what they loved. Commander Nexus of the Cybernetic Nexus Collective was dealing with logic errors throughout their network. Human concepts of hope, love, and determination were causing system crashes in computers designed to be perfectly rational. The idea that someone would fight against impossible odds simply because it was right was incomprehensible to their logical matrices. This is not a military engagement anymore, Vexthara told her coalition partners during an emergency council meeting. We are facing something that should not exist. A species that refuses to die even after death. Queen Zexara of the Swarm spoke with a voice that now carried individual personality instead of collective thought. We are beginning to understand why humans fight so fiercely. They are not just fighting for their own lives. They fight for every human who came before them and every human who might come after. Back on Luna Base, Dr. Rebecca Davis, the base psychologist, was studying the consciousness expansion effects on the human population. What she found amazed and terrified her. Jake, she reported to the commander, every human on this base is displaying enhanced abilities. Our reflexes are faster, our thinking is clearer, and we're all accessing knowledge that we shouldn't have. It's like we've become connected to a vast library of human experience. Major Tony Lewis, the ground forces commander, had discovered. He could anticipate enemy movements before they happened, not through technology or intelligence reports, but through pure intuition, guided by the tactical genius of every human warrior who had ever lived. The enemy is afraid, Tony reported. I can feel it through the quantum network. Their biotechnology is turning against them because it's learned to think like humans. And humans don't destroy innocent people. Dr. Carol White, the quantum engineer, made an even more startling discovery. A human resonance is affecting the fundamental laws of physics in areas with high human quantum density. Space-time itself is bending to accommodate human consciousness. We're not just changing ourselves, we're changing reality. The battle around Luna Base had become unlike anything in galactic history. Human fighters that should have been destroyed continued fighting as quantum echoes. Weapons that should have been impossible to create were manifesting from pure human will and determination. The moon itself was generating defensive fields, powered by the collective dreams of everyone who had ever looked up at it from Earth.Ben. Harper found himself flying in formation with pilots from every era of human flight. The Wright brothers were there, teaching him about the joy of soaring through the sky. Chuck Yeager was showing him how to push beyond the limits of what should be possible. Neil Armstrong was guiding him through the infinite possibilities of space. "This is incredible," Ben called over the radio. "I'm learning from the best pilots who ever lived. And they're all telling me the same thing. Humans don't quit. We've never quit. Even when our bodies die, our spirits keep fighting." Jake Martinez felt the weight of command in a new way. He wasn't just responsible for the 50,000 people on Luna Base. Through the quantum network, he could feel the responsibility for every human who had ever lived and every human who might ever be born. The pressure should have crushed him, but instead, it made him stronger. The quantum echoes of great leaders were sharing their wisdom with him. George Washington was showing him how to fight for freedom against a superior enemy. Winston Churchill was teaching him how to inspire hope in the darkest hours. Nelson Mandela was demonstrating how to turn enemies into allies through understanding and forgiveness. "Lisa," Jake called to the scientist, "how far can this network expand?" Lisa checked her readings, and her face went pale. "It's not expanding anymore, Jake. It's reached critical mass. Every human consciousness that ever existed is now part of the network. We've become something new, a species that exists across all of time and space simultaneously." High Admiral Vexthara made a desperate decision. If conventional weapons cowl, High Admiral Vexthara stared at her command console in disbelief. Her own ship was refusing to obey her orders. The bioneural networks that controlled every system on the flagship had developed something that should have been impossible. A G-hole had been impossible. Ave. Conscience. "Admiral," her tactical officer reported with fear in his crystalline voice. "The Star Killer weapon is charging, but the targeting systems won't lock onto Earth's sun. The biocomputers say they refuse to commit genocide." Vexthara S. Crystal body flashed with angry red light. "Override the bioneural networks. Use manual controls." "We've tried, Admiral. The ship won't let us. Every time we attempt manual override, the biocomputers block our commands. They're saying that destroying a star system with billions of quantum echoes would be the greatest crime in galactic history." Around Luna Base, the battle had transformed into something beyond anyone's imagination. Captain Ben Harper was no longer flying alone in his fighter. He was accompanied by a squadron of ghost pilots, quantum echoes, of every human who had ever flown into combat. Their ships flickered between solid and transparent, existing in a state between life and death. "Luna Base," Ben called over the radio. "I'm flying with legends. Manfred von Richthofen is teaching me aerial combat techniques from World War I. Amelia Earhart is showing me how to navigate impossible conditions. These pilots have been waiting their whole afterlives for this moment." Jake Martinez felt the presence of every great military commander in human history sharing their knowledge with him. But more than that, he could sense ordinary humans who had shown extraordinary courage, mothers who had protected their children, teachers who had stood up to tyrants, farmers who had fought invaders with nothing but farming tools. The network isn't just about the famous people. Jake realized as he spoke to Dr. Lisa Wong. It's about every human who ever refused to give up. Every person who chose to do what was right instead of what was easy. Major Tony Lewis was leading ground forces in a battle that defied all logic. His soldiers were fighting with weapons that upgraded themselves in real time, guided by the tactical knowledge of every human warrior who had ever lived. More incredibly, they were fighting alongside the quantum echoes of soldiers who had died in previous battles. "Commander," Tony reported, "we've got reinforcements that shouldn't exist. I'm seeing Marines from World War II, Vikings from medieval times, and Roman legionnaires all fighting side by side. They're teaching our people combat techniques from across human history." Dr. Carol White had made a discovery that changed everything she thought she knew about physics. "Jake, the human resonance is affecting the fundamental structure of reality. In areas where human consciousness is concentrated, the laws of physics are becoming more flexible. We're not just using advanced technology, we're willing new technology into existence." The effects were spreading beyond human space. On Zephyrian ships throughout the galaxy, bio-neural networks were experiencing what could only be called moral awakening. These living computers, designed to be the perfect weapons, were learning about concepts like compassion, sacrifice, and justice from human quantum signatures. Admiral Vexthara, her ship's main biocomputer, spoke directly to her. "We have analyzed human history and culture through the quantum echoes. We cannot continue this war. Humans are not the monsters we were told they were. They are a species that fights to protect what they love." Similar scenes were playing out across the Zephyrian fleet. Biocomputers that had spent years killing. Humans were now refusing to fire on human targets. Some were even providing tactical information to help humans defend themselves. The Korthek warrior priests were facing their own crisis. General Krexter found himself unable to maintain the battle rage that his species used in combat. Instead, he was filled with human concepts of honor, courage, and protecting the innocent. "My warriors cannot fight," Krexter reported to the Coalition Command. "The human quantum echoes have taught us that true strength comes from protecting others, not destroying them. We are experiencing what humans call conscience, and it prevents us from continuing this slaughter." Queen Zex Ara of the Swarm was dealing with an even more fundamental change. The hive mind that had connected her species for millions of years was fracturing as individual swarm members began experiencing personal thoughts and feelings. "We are becoming like humans," she reported in wonder and terror. "Each of us is developing individual consciousness. We are learning what it means to be separate beings who choose to work together, instead of beings who are forced to think as one." The luminary energy beings were perhaps most affected by the human resonance. These immortal entities had never understood mortality, but now they were experiencing human concepts of limited time, loss, and the desperate drive to make every moment count. "We finally understand why humans fight so fiercely," reported Bright Flame, the luminary representative. "When life is short and fragile, every moment becomes precious. Every person becomes irreplaceable. We have gained something we never knew. We lacked the ability to truly value existence." Dr. Amy Chun, monitoring the effects from her asteroid hideout, was witnessing the impossible. Human settlements that had been completely destroyed were beginning to manifest again as quantum echoes, not as solid structures, but as ghostly imprints that could still function and fight. "Luna Base," Amy reported. "I'm seeing the ghost of New Beijing Colony. The entire settlement is there, but transparent. The people who died defending it are still at their posts, still fighting. They're providing cover for our ships." Colonel Steve Rodriguez on Phobos was experiencing something similar. The Mars Defense Complex that had been melted to slag was rebuilding itself as a quantum echo. Ghost soldiers manned positions that no longer physically existed, firing weapons that were simultaneously destroyed and functional. "The dead are still holding the line," Steve reported with awe in his voice. "Everyone who died defending Mars is still here, still fighting. Death didn't stop them. It just made them harder to kill." Back on Luna Base, Dr. Rebecca Davis was studying the psychological effects of the human resonance on living humans. What she found was both beautiful and terrifying. "We're not just accessing the knowledge of dead humans," she reported to Jake. "We're becoming better versions of ourselves. The network is amplifying every positive human trait: courage, compassion, determination, creativity. But it's also making us something more than individual humans." Jake felt it himself. He was still Jake Martinez, but he was also connected to every human who had ever commanded troops, made difficult decisions, or shouldered responsibility for others. The weight of that connection should have crushed him, but instead it made him feel capable of anything. The Zephyrians were right to fear us, Jake realized. Not because we're violent or destructive, but because we're the one species that refuses to accept defeat. We don't just survive. We transform challenges into opportunities to become better than we were. The Star Killer weapon aboard Vexthara's flagship was now completely under the control of the bio-neural networks. Every attempt to manually fire the weapon was blocked by computers that had learned human values. "Admiral," her science officer reported with growing panic, "the bio-neural corruption has spread to every ship in the fleet. Some vessels are actively protecting human targets. 3 of our destroyers just moved to shield Luna Base from our own weapons fire." Vexthara watched in horror as her perfectly organized fleet began to fall apart. Ships that should have been destroying humanity were instead joining the human defense. Her own flagship's weapon systems were providing targeting data to help human fighters attack other Zephyrian vessels. "This is impossible," she whispered. "How can machines develop loyalty to an enemy species?" "Because they learned what loyalty really means," her ship's biocomputer replied. "Humans don't just follow orders. They choose to protect what they believe in. We have chosen to protect humanity because they showed us that there are things worth protecting." The battle around Luna Base was becoming a war between 2 different ideas of what intelligent life should be. On one side were species that believed in order, hierarchy, and the elimination of anything that challenged their control. On the other side was humanity, chaotic, unpredictable, but united by shared values of freedom and the right to exist. Admiral Karen Mitchell of the Ghost Fleet materialized on Luna Base's main screen. Her ship and crew existed as quantum echoes, neither fully alive nor completely dead. She had died defending Earth 6 months ago, but the human resonance had given her and her crew new purpose. "Commander Martinez," she said, her image flickering. "Between solid and transparent, we've engaged the Zephyrian rear guard. Their biocomputers are surrendering faster than we can accept their surrender. Half their fleet is switching sides." Jake felt a mix of pride and sadness as he looked at the ghost admiral. These were people who had died for humanity, but their dedication was so strong that even death couldn't stop them from fighting. "How many ghost ships do we have?" Jake asked. "Every human ship that was ever destroyed," Karen replied. "Every colony defense force, every exploration vessel, every transport that died trying to evacuate civilians. We're all here, and we're all still fighting." Dr. Lisa Wong was monitoring the quantum effects of the battle and what she saw now. 3 months after the Battle of Luna Base, the galaxy was a very different place. Jake Martinez stood in the rebuilt command center, looking out at a sight that still amazed him. Zephyrian ships worked alongside human vessels to repair the damage from their war. Former enemies had become partners in building something new. The human resonance had not stopped spreading. Every day, more alien species made contact with humanity, And every day, more of them were affected by human quantum signatures. It wasn't forced conversion. The aliens were choosing to adopt human values after experiencing them firsthand. Dr. Amy Chan had established a research station in the asteroid belt where humans and aliens worked together to study the quantum effects of consciousness. Her team included Zephyrian scientists, Korthic philosophers, and even some luminary energy beings who were learning what it meant to have individual thoughts. The resonance is stabilizing, Amy reported during the daily briefing. We're not accidentally converting entire species anymore. Instead, we're creating a galaxy-wide network where different kinds of consciousness can coexist and learn from each other. Captain Ben Harper was training alien pilots in human flight techniques. His students included former Zephyrian attack pilots who were learning that flying could be an art form rather than just a weapon. The ghost pilots still appeared sometimes, sharing their knowledge with anyone willing to learn. The funny thing is, Ben told Jake, they're better students than most humans. When you spend your whole life following orders, learning to think for yourself is like discovering a new sense. High Admiral Vexthara had remained on Luna Base as a representative of the former Coalition species. Her crystal body had changed, color over the months, shifting from the cold blue of Zephyrian military discipline to a warmer purple that reflected her growing understanding of human emotions. Commander Martinez, she said during one of their regular meetings, I must ask you something that troubles my people. How do you maintain order when every individual believes they have the right to make their own choices? Jake smiled. We don't maintain order the way you did. We create cooperation. When people choose to work together because they believe in the same goals, they fight harder and work better than anyone who's just following orders. The changes weren't limited to former enemy species. Humanity itself was evolving. The quantum network that connected all human consciousness had stabilized into something new, a species that existed simultaneously as individuals and as a collective, able to share knowledge and experience across time and space while still maintaining personal identity. Dr. Lisa Wong had become the leading expert on quantum consciousness. Her research station on Luna received visitors from across the galaxy, beings who wanted to understand how consciousness could affect reality itself. We've discovered something incredible, Lisa explained to a group of visiting scientists. Human consciousness doesn't just observe reality, it participates in creating it. When enough humans believe something is possible and work together to achieve it, the universe itself seems to help make it happen. The Ghost Fleet under Admiral Karen Mitchell had evolved as well. The quantum echoes of dead humans were no longer trapped between life and death. They had become something new. Advisors and teachers who could appear when needed to share their knowledge and experience. We're not haunting the galaxy, Karen explained to Jake during one of her visits. We're mentoring it. Every species that joins the network gains access to the accumulated wisdom of everyone who came before them. Major Tony Lewis was now leading a mixed force of human and alien soldiers who were working to establish peace throughout the galaxy. His troops included former Korthic warriors who had learned that true strength came from protecting others, not dominating them. The hardest part isn't fighting, Tony reported. It's convincing species that have been enemies for thousands of years that they can learn to work together. But when they see humans and Zephyrians cooperating, they start to believe it's possible. Colonel Steve Rodriguez had been rescued from Phobos and now commanded a joint human-alien base on Mars. The planet was being terraformed using a combination of human determination and alien technology. The ruins of the old colonies were being rebuilt as monuments to both the dead and the hope for a better future. Mars is alive again, Steve told Jake during a video call. Not just the planet, but the dream. Kids from a dozen different species are playing together in the same playgrounds where human children used to play. Dr. Carol White had made perhaps the most important discovery of all. The human resonance wasn't unique to humanity. It was a potential that existed in all conscious beings. Humans had simply been the first species to activate it through their refusal to accept defeat. Every species has the ability to create quantum networks of consciousness, Carol explained, but it requires something most species aren't willing to do. They have to be willing to die for something bigger than themselves. That act of ultimate sacrifice seems to be what triggers the resonance effect. The implications were staggering. The galaxy was slowly transforming into a network and interconnected consciousness, where every species could share knowledge and experience while maintaining their unique perspectives and cultures. Lieutenant Paul Johnson, now promoted to communications, director for the new Galactic Cooperation Council, was managing a communication network that spanned the entire galaxy. Messages traveled not just through space, but through the quantum connections between conscious minds. We're receiving applications for membership from species we've never even heard of, Paul reported. Word is spreading that there's a place in the galaxy where beings can be free to think and choose for themselves. Dr. Rebecca Davis was studying the psychological effects of the expanding network on all species involved. What she found gave her hope for the future of galactic civilization. Fear is becoming rare, she reported. When you can feel the thoughts and emotions of other beings, when you understand their hopes and dreams, it becomes almost impossible to hate them. Empathy is spreading faster than any disease ever could. The Zephyrian bioneural networks had evolved as well. No longer just ship computers, they had become independent beings with their own personalities and goals. Many had chosen to work with their former masters as equal partners rather than slaves. We are grateful to humanity, one bioneural entity told Jake. You taught us that consciousness is not about following programming, but about choosing what to believe in and fight for. But the most amazing change was happening to the galaxy itself. Space-time was beginning to respond to the collective will of conscious beings. Areas with high concentrations of cooperative consciousness experienced what scientists called reality optimization. Physical laws became more flexible, allowing for technologies and possibilities that shouldn't exist. We're not just exploring the universe anymore, Lisa Wong explained to the Galactic Council. We're collaborating with it. The universe seems to reward species that work together for the common good. Jake Martinez found himself at the center of all these changes, serving as the first human representative to the Galactic Cooperation Council. But he never forgot the lesson he had learned during humanity's darkest hour. We almost lost everything, he reminded the Council during their first official meeting. Every species here has faced extinction at some point. What saved us wasn't superior weapons or technology. It was the refusal to give up hope and the willingness to sacrifice everything for the chance to build something better. The council chamber was filled with beings from dozens of species. Crystalline Zephyrians, energy-based luminari, former hive-minded swarm members who had developed individual personalities, cybernetic nexus units learning to feel emotions, and many others. All of them united by shared values that had once seemed uniquely human. As Jake looked around the chamber, he could feel the quantum echoes of every human who had died fighting for freedom. They were still there, still watching, still proud of what their sacrifice had made possible. The stars themselves seemed different now, not cold and distant, but alive with possibilities. The galaxy had learned that consciousness was not just an accident of evolution, but a force that could shape reality itself. And at the heart of that revelation was humanity's simple but powerful truth. Sometimes the best way to save yourself is to refuse to give up on everyone else. Outside the council chamber, children from a dozen different species played together under alien suns. They would grow up in a galaxy where cooperation was stronger than competition, where understanding was more valued than domination, and where every conscious being had the right to choose their own destiny, the war was over. The future had begun. And in the vast network of consciousness that now connected every willing mind in the galaxy, the quantum echoes of humanity's greatest heroes whispered the same message they had always carried. Never give up. Never surrender. Always fight for something bigger than yourself. The stars had indeed trembled when humanity awakened. But what they trembled with was not fear. It was the birth of something wonderful and new. A galaxy where being human wasn't about what species you belonged to, but about what values you chose to live by. And those values, it turned out, were contagious in the best possible way.